Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Trebas Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
California water agencies can now recycle highly purified wastewater and put it directly into the drinking water supply. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. State regulators voted unanimously to approve new rules today. KPBS reporter Jacob Ayers says the decision may impact San Diego County, which has several water purification projects in various stages.
California has been using recycled wastewater for decades, but it hasn't before been used directly for drinking water. The new rules approved by the State Water Resources Control Board would allow, but do not require California water agencies to take wastewater, treat it, and then put it right back into the drinking water system.
From beginning to end, it'll be a lot faster, but it may be a little bit more expensive with direct potable reuse.
Lindsay Leahy is the Water Utilities Director with the City of Oceanside. She says the new rules could influence the future of Pure Water Oceanside, which currently treats wastewater through indirect potable reuse methods that involve an environmental buffer.
We will be looking at whether or not this is a cost-effective option for Oceanside and comparing that to what we had planned for Pure Water Oceanside Phase 2.
The Pure Water San Diego project could also be impacted by the new rules. The phased multi-year potable reuse program aims to provide nearly half of San Diego's water supply by the end of 2035. In a statement, city spokesperson Arian Collins said, the city has been actively engaged in the development of indirect and direct potable reuse regulations, and that the new rules would set rigorous standards to ensure the health and safety of public water supplies. California is just the second state to allow direct potable use following Colorado. The rules would be intensive and require the treatment for all pathogens and viruses, even if they're not found in the wastewater. That's stricter than the standards for treating regular drinking water.
We have the technology to treat this water to ensure that it's high quality, that it's pure, that it's safe to use.
Kyle Swanson is the general manager and CEO of the Padre Dam Municipal Water District in East San Diego County. He says the new rules with direct potable reuse could help offset drought impacts and reduce the need for long-distance water transport.
Primarily, our water comes into San Diego County from Northern California, from the Colorado River system. Specifically, if you talk about the Colorado River system, I mean, that's on multiple decades of drought and challenges in that system.
The state's Office of Administrative Law will also need to approve the new wastewater rules, which would likely happen sometime in 2024. Jacob Ayers, KPBS News.
Wet weather will be on the increase over the next couple of days. Still some showers overnight into Wednesday, but the steadier and the heavier rain kicks in Wednesday night into Thursday. And that's when we could actually see significant amounts. I'll highlight those and much more, as well as any potential weekend changes. Of course, we'll talk about temperatures over the course of the next several days as well. That's all coming up.
The city of San Diego is making sandbags available ahead of the expected rain. Nearly a dozen local rec centers will have empty bags for people to pick up during afternoon hours this week. Those with proof of residency can get up to 10 bags per person, but sand is not provided. San Diego voters approved a new civilian police oversight board in 2020. It took years for the city council to finally seat the commission, and now KPBS's Scott Rod reports the board is trying to find a new executive director.
The city's Commission on Police Practices is tasked with reviewing officer-involved shootings, in-custody deaths, and complaints against San Diego police officers. It also suggests policy changes to the department, Eventually, the volunteer board will have the power to subpoena witnesses and independently investigate serious cases of alleged officer misconduct. But first, it needs to find a new leader. Charmaine Mosley, who led the city's civilian police oversight efforts for more than 8 years, left several weeks ago for a job in Los Angeles County. That puts the commission in a tough spot.
There's certain people in our office that can't sign anything and authorize anything, so it's backlogged a little bit.
Gloria Tran is chair of the Commission on Police Practices.
Getting an executive director in quickly is important because we're building a foundation.
She says she hopes they can find a new executive director in the next 3 months. But
I know the bureaucracy probably won't allow that, but we're trying to expedite it as much as we can legally allowed.
In 2020, city voters overwhelmingly approved this more robust police oversight board amid a nationwide reckoning on officer misconduct following the murder of George Floyd. But the city fell behind schedule almost immediately. A KPBS investigation earlier this year found dozens of complaints against officers expired without independent civilian review, as the city council took years to stand up the new commission. The Oversight Board has now restarted their review of alleged misconduct cases. Scott Rodd, KPBS News.
Alaska Airlines flight attendants are demanding better pay and once again are taking their message to travelers at the airport. It's the third time this year workers have demonstrated in San Diego. KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman says the union could vote to strike.
Is Alaska hearing our voices? I'm confident they're going to hear it now.
Alaska, pay us what we need.
Terminal 2 was filled with Alaska Airlines flight attendants. Local union leaders say negotiations on a new contract have basically fallen apart.
This has been building up for a while. We were sold on this promise of top of industry wages with an aggressive bargaining schedule. We came to that wholeheartedly, and the company did not produce.
The demonstration in San Diego is part of a larger nationwide day of action. The Flight Attendants Union is announcing that members will vote next month on whether to authorize a strike against Alaska Air. Union leaders say they haven't had to do this since 1993 during a chaos strike. That stands for Create Havoc Around Our System.
In '93, we were very successful, AFA Alaska, in a chaos strike. But we're to that point now. We're just kind of fed up with management not paying us our worth.
Melanie Bucher says she's been with Alaska Air for 34 years and is vice president of the local union.
Inflation's been so high. Right now, with the pay scale that they've offered us, it would be like a 1% raise above inflation, which as soon as it's approved, we're already behind the gun. So they need to step up and they need to pay us more.
Alaska Airlines officials say they've made an offer that would put flight attendants' pay at or near the top of the industry with an immediate 15% increase. The airline says they're open to more proposals and are actively negotiating with more meetings set for early next year.
We're not backing down at this point. We are taking this the entire way. The only way it's going to stop that is if we get a contract that is actually economically feasible.
Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
There's already a court challenge to a law signed yesterday by Texas Governor Greg Abbott. It would give local police and judges more power to enforce immigration laws. The ACLU and other civil rights groups are suing to block the law. It's set to take effect until March. It allows local law enforcement to arrest people who cross into the U.S. illegally and allows local judges to issue deportation orders. Even in the smoothest of cases, the immigration system is becoming increasingly hard to navigate. And part of that is due to an immense backlog of cases. Ed Lavandera tells us why people will have to wait years to get their cases heard.
Outside any American immigration court these days, you'll likely find long lines, people gathering in the middle of the night for court appearances that will determine if they stay in the United States or if they'll be deported.
They are lining up sometimes at 5 a.m. I've seen them lining up the night before as well.
Some of these migrants will end up in Mimi Sankoff's New York City courtroom. Judge Sankoff is the president of the National Association of Immigration Judges. She's served as a judge for 17 years and has never seen the system under this intense strain.
Some days I can see up to 100 different cases just in a morning. I've been a judge in Los Angeles, Colorado, and in New York City, and I've never seen the numbers that we're seeing right now.
Now, for the first time, tracking data shows the immigration court backlog has reached more than 3 million cases. In 2012, there were over 325,000 backlog cases. Across the country, there are just 71 immigration courts and 734 immigration judges that handle this caseload. The states with the largest numbers of pending cases are Florida, Texas, California, and New York. Last December, we met Jason Virguez, his wife Zulema, and their 2 children as they crossed the Rio Grande into El Paso, Texas.
Es duro. Es duro por lo que está pasando en mi país.
Did you think reaching this point was going to be so emotional?
No pensamos que fuera a ser así.
With tears in their eyes, they told me they never thought the journey from Venezuela would be so painful.
Gusto verte, Jason.
Muy bien, gracias a Dios.
The family is now in New York, navigating the immigration asylum process. Their journey captures the dilemma of the overwhelmed system.
It's been a year since we met you. You just had your first hearing in the court, correct?
Están ocupados o cuando te contestan dice que te van a devolver la llamada y bueno.
They say it's been very difficult to find an attorney. In fact, after a year, they still haven't been able to get an immigration attorney.
The same tracking data shows close to 100% of the migrants who have lawyers show up to the court hearings. The data is less clear for migrants who don't have lawyers. Jason and Zulema attended their first court hearing last week and have another date set for April of next year. The Biden administration has added more than 300 immigration judges to help handle the massive backlog of cases. But Judge Sankoff also says there aren't enough interpreters and law clerks to move cases along.
The focus has been on hiring more immigration judges, which makes sense. But you cannot hire your way out of this problem because even an immigration judge really can only handle maybe about 500 cases a year.
And that was Ed Lavandera reporting. Android users might be getting some money back from Google as part of a $700 million settlement. California is among the states that sued over allegations that Google abused its partnerships with wireless carriers and phone companies. The Justice Department says app downloads were unfairly funneled through the Google Play Store, limiting competition. A new analysis shows the extent of Chula Vista's parkland divide. KPBS South Bay reporter Corey Suzuki spoke with the South Bay researcher who analyzed parks and census data.
We're at the Marina View Park on J Street in Chula Vista.
Jacob Helfman has spent a lot of time at parks over the years. That's partly because he helps to take care of his dad, who has dementia.
One thing that's recommended by doctors for people with dementia is to be more active in their life, including taking walks and being exposed to green space is potentially really beneficial to them as well.
But this year, there's been a big debate over parks in Chula Vista, specifically over the unequal way that the city has built out parkland across the east and west sides. As a result, residents' access to parkland depends largely on where they live. Helfman specializes in GIS, a kind of research that combines computer science and digital mapping. And last month, he decided to do his own analysis of the city's parks, using regional, state, and federal data. Helfman found he and his parents and other residents living on the city's west side have access to less than a third of the park space as east side residents. He also found that west side households were more likely to be poorer, identify as Latino, and live near sources of pollution.
I believe that this is a really big environmental justice issue because parks bring so many benefits. They build a sense of community, and they address the big environmental and health challenges that we have, like climate change and childhood obesity. I believe every resident deserves access to quality parks and as places to play, exercise, and connect with nature.
Helfman says he knows that closing this divide will be a long process. He hopes his maps will help bring that change a little faster. Corey Suzuki, KPBS News.
As the night wears on, precipitation will begin to increase in overall coverage and gradually start to increase in intensity too. Overnight low temperatures dropping down into the upper 50s, a little bit lower toward Chula Vista and Oceanside, a pair of 56s there. And again, the rain will be working its way down from north to south. Back over the interior, no wet weather just yet, around 48 degrees in Borrego Springs, Mount Laguna dropping down into the upper 30s. But I want to show you the progression, and at least over the short term, the heaviest of the rain staying off toward the north. And we've seen some high amounts here north of San Francisco, toward Redding, toward Eureka. A couple of inches of rain the last few days. Notice the showers in our area off and on throughout the overnight and right into Wednesday. And then you start to see this plume of moisture, some heavier rains beginning to approach areas to our northwest in and around Los Angeles. We're going to see some wet weather, so the rain will continue as we work our way through Wednesday. Not overly heavy here just yet. And we're looking at high temperatures topping out into the upper 60s. Again, toward Oceanside, Ramona climbs the 67 degrees. There are flood watches up to the north, and we could see an expansion of these as we work our way through time. But I want to tell you here as we go throughout the next couple of days, our heaviest rain at the coast will be coming on Thursday, when we could see a month's worth of rain. When I say a month's worth of rain, the historical average, right around 1.6, 1.7 inches of rain. We could see that here on Thursday, or from Wednesday night into Thursday night, rather. And then we're going to start to see some sunshine returning as we work our way into the weekend. Over the inland locations, the valleys also could see some amounts of rain topping an inch or two. Some areas could see locally higher amounts, quieter conditions, though, as we head toward the weekend, and cooler here, too. Even ending as a little bit of snow up over 7,000 feet on a Friday into the mountainous terrain. Sunshine by Sunday. And as we talk about the deserts here, too, we're going to see some wet weather as we head our way into Thursday night and Friday. For KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Justin Pavic.
Southern California veterans are suing to gain access to homes on land that was supposed to be theirs. Now a federal judge says their case can move forward. Nick Watt tells us about the housing solution that has the potential to help hundreds of people.
This sprawling VA campus in West Los Angeles was once home to 4,000 veterans. The land was given to vets way back in 1888, but now many buildings lie dilapidated, unused, while around 4,000 veterans are homeless in LA. There is a VA hospital here, but also UCLA's beautiful baseball field and the exclusive Brentwood School's splendid sports facilities. A federal judge now says he wants thousands of veterans experiencing homelessness to live here once more, and fast. And he wants the VA to quit leasing some of the land.
I think all of us are losing patience. This should not have been going on as long as it has. This has been a problem for decades.
After campaigning by Reynolds and others, as well as CNN shining a light on decades of mismanagement.
For years, I believe it was stolen.
14 veterans filed suit against their government, demanding more housing here for needy vets, better access to the care they need, and an end to the leases for the likes of Brentwood School. The government filed motions to dismiss this week. Judge David Carter himself, a Vietnam War veteran and a Purple Heart recipient, denied those motions in a ruling. The case goes ahead.
It's a great victory. It's the greatest legal victory on behalf of veterans in the history of the country. It's the beginning of the end of veteran homelessness in Los Angeles and really throughout the nation.
After a previous lawsuit, construction of units for homeless vets is underway on this land. More than 800 units should be open by now, but only 233 are actually finished. Red tape is slowing construction and preventing some disabled vets like Josh Erickson from moving in.
How did you lose your leg?
I stepped on an IED in Afghanistan.
The government says his disability allowance means he earns too much to qualify, so he's still homeless.
With your own bathroom, your own place to live on that campus, what would that mean to you?
That would mean the world to me. That's all I ever want.
Josh Pettit recently managed to move in. He says housing helps a lot.
It can mean everything. It can mean stability. With the start of stability, you can start to fix other problems. But if you're out in the streets and your only opportunity is to self-medicate to get through your problems, and that's no way to that's not the answer.
Judge Carter wants government departments to stop pointing fingers at each other over what's happened here. He wants a quick settlement. He flashed up this picture of the VA secretary, Dennis McDonough, on the land for the opening of housing units, and said if he can fly out here for a ribbon cutting, he can fly out here to work on a settlement plan to house many more homeless vets.
This case should not see the inside of a courtroom. The administration and Congress on its own should end veteran homelessness and stop fighting the veterans who fought for this nation.
I'm Jeff Bennett. Tonight on the NewsHour, how the U.S. is trying to protect commercial ships from Houthi rebels in the Red Sea. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
A unique matchup tonight at Viejas Arena. The SDSU men's basketball team will host the University of St. Catherine Firebirds. The small university is located in San Marcos, and the game starts at 7. And this is the first of 2 home games this week. The Aztecs host Stanford on Thursday. As we wrap up the year, we're bringing back some of our best stories from 2023. One project that resonated with our audience is our focus on public art around San Diego. They're all available to watch on the KPBS YouTube page. In this story from October, Brendan Tucanardi takes us to a giant mosaic in La Jolla that celebrates the underwater world.
It's just steps away from a swing set, slide, and jungle gym. In the background, you hear the laughter of children and the sound of crashing waves. It's another playground of sorts made out of concrete and tile. The map, as it's affectionately called, is a 2,500 square foot mosaic. It sits at the Walter Monk Educational Plaza at La Jolla Shores. This massive piece of public art depicts the Grand Canyons of La Jolla, as well as over 100 species indigenous to California's coast, all in hundreds of thousands of pieces of hand-cut tile. Making a mosaic of this size is not easy, and it's only possible thanks to the technique called lithomosaic. It was invented by artists Robin Brailsford and Wick Alexander, along with concrete specialists.
Well, I tend to be a person who thinks big, and this is a technique that really only works for big, so that fit right in for me.
The patented process is a remix of the classic mosaic technique of securing tile to a surface with mortar and grout. Instead, lithomosaic uses monolithic concrete pours.
So lithomosaic did 2 things. It allows us to work super large. One just went in this week in Tempe, Arizona, that's 750 square feet. And it also has figured out a way through the chemical balance of the concrete and with the techniques that we put into it to allow it to go in a freeze-thaw environments. So we have it in Alaska, Nevada, New Mexico, places where you wouldn't normally be able to have mosaics.
Brailsford also works with artists Kelsey Hartley and Mariah Armstrong Connors. She says a new mosaic begins with research.
When I have a project or when I have identified a site that I want to do for my own without a public art commission, I think of I study it really hard. I am there, I watch the sunrise, the moon set, whatever. I talk to the people, I research a lot in the libraries, I read a lot of books. All my project proposals have bibliographies, extensive bibliographies for the research I've done.
Brailsford and Alexander's home studio is nestled in the hills of East San Diego County. There, the shelves of books are evidence of that scholarly approach to public art.
We're at a funny point now where the house doesn't have very many walls, and all the walls that can have either paintings or bookshelves. So, how many more books do we buy is the current problem.
Once the research is done, the next step is design conception.
I do all my lithomosaic layouts. I paint them on clear plastic because I'm basically a glass artist, and so I'm most comfortable working in glass. That's why, things that you're seeing that are older are glass. So anyway, I paint on both sides of a piece of clear plastic like this, and I can really get the effect that I want of what the lithomosaics are going to be like.
Then the labor-intensive work of hand-cutting and placing each piece of tile begins. In the lithomosaic process, tiles are secured upside down to mesh with water-based glue. After the layout is complete, it's time to install the mosaic. This is done by concrete professionals.
So they take it and they lay it upside down in the monolithic concrete pour. Pull off the plastic, and then they trowel it, and then when the concrete has begun to set a little bit, enough to hold the tiles in place, then they peel the mesh back, and the tiles are actually there in place, and no mesh and no grouting and no buckets and no back-breaking work on our part.
Back at the map, we're able to get a better idea of how the skilled craftsmen install the mosaic.
Imagine putting this much tile in your kitchen. So what they were doing was that on one end they were troweling this one in, and over here they had the pumper truck, and they were up to their ankles pumping in the concrete and leveling it, and then bringing over the next one at the same time. It's the ballet of the highest order of how they put it together.
All of this wouldn't be possible without the Walter Munk Foundation for the Oceans. It worked with the city and community stakeholders to bring the mosaic to life. Munk is widely considered to be the father of modern oceanography. He was one of the first scientists to bring statistical methods to the analysis of oceanographic data. And while he died in 2019 before the map was finished, the mosaic continues his legacy of teaching the next generation about the oceans and the animals that call it home. And the beauty of public art is that it's for everyone.
Well, I was just talking to one of my collaborators, Kelsey Hartley, on the phone, and she was pointing out that in this time right now, mortgages are expensive, COVID has left people without jobs, there's a lot of uncertainty in the world, and what's great about public art and something like this is you can really sort of interact and own it, on your own. I love the fact that my things don't belong to anybody, and they belong to everybody. And you can be here at midnight, you can be here at 3 o'clock in the morning, you can be homeless, you can have the biggest house in La Jolla, and you all get to experience it in the same way.
From a 31-foot gray whale to a life-size human diver, the map offers visitors a chance to explore the ocean, but without having to get wet.
There you go. That's what more could I ask for?
Brendan Tuccinardi, KPBS News.
And here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. NPR's Morning Edition is diving into the patent dispute that has Apple taking its latest smartwatches off of the shelves, as well as how it affects consumers who bought or are thinking about buying the device. And KPBS Midday Edition is highlighting more of the best discussions from the past year. Tomorrow we'll focus on issues around race and equity. And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Good night.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Previs Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.